Okay.
All right, I have
Anybody there?
Tori,
Try to ask him
Bob,
nice.
Jennifer, India, Sue, Becky, Fleming, Seabounder. Are you a public person?
You were very close in the pronunciation. It's pronounced Siebanaler, and I work with independent living. So I'm just here to listen and see what is going on with this wonderful group.
Okay, Becky, and then we have Tim and Matt Kaler has joined us, and Greg Trangmo. Are you there, Greg? Hello.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, and can you introduce yourself for me? I'm just writing down names.
Sure. I'm the board chair at Stevensville Schools, and we've got a lot of outreach and technical education programs that we're sort of in the formation of. So we'd like to keep tabs of what everybody's doing in the Valley. So I'm just sitting in today to listen. Okay,
great. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Dan Funch.
Yes, I'm one of our interim associate deans here at Missoula College. So I just wanted to support you guys and just hang out and sit in on your meeting. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome. And then Monique, are you there?
I am here.
All right, and Monique Fortman, can you introduce yourselves to other folks?
I am the director of the Lifelong Learning Center in Missoula, and we provide outreach for basic skills education in Mineral, Ravalli, and Missoula County.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to go back to the beginning of our, oh, Matt, I'm sorry. I will have everybody introduce themselves also. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the meeting, the agenda, and remind members that if there is a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda, that you may say so during the course of the meeting when we're discussing things. So, welcome to a Zoom advisory council meeting. I'm technically sitting in Seattle with our youngest son and his family because they have done an excellent job. Kids under the age of 7 and they're going crazy. So Grandpa and Grandma came to help. So that's where we are. Please introduce themselves, and everyone knows Tori, and you're just left on my upper screen. So Tori, can you just do a quick hello to folks?
Hello, I'm Victoria Clark, Tori Clark, Director of Bitterroot College.
All right, thank you. And Bob?
Okay, I'm just learning which buttons. Can you hear me there? It's okay. I'm highlighted Bob Nichols, and I've worked in social services for 30 years. I'm retired now from Ravalli Services. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Johnson. I'm a faculty member at Bitterroot.
All right. And India?
Hi, I'm India Height. I'm a student representative here on the Advisory Council.
All right, thank you, India. And Sue?
Sue Smith, retired CEO, Ravalli County Federal Credit Union, trustee-elect for Bitterroot Valley Community College. I think that's enough.
All right, thank you. And Tim?
Tim Johnson, Superintendent, Crevalle School District.
All right, thank you. And Matt, we didn't have you introduce yourself yet.
Matt Kaler, also Bitterroot College faculty.
All right, wonderful. Welcome. Dave Beatty is currently in a meeting and will be joining us later. Elida, this date did not work for her. And Quinn, the perpetually employed person, is working today. So Quinn is not with us either. I'm trying to think if there are any other council members who are missing?
Candy, I might have to bow out to go pick up my mom from a thing a little
Okay.
early. Not sure, but just be
Okay.
advised.
Great. Thank you. All righty.
Nathan was here, but then he was gone.
Oh,
Let's see if I missed him. Whoop.
Oh yeah, and there's Terry.
But Nathan's
Terry.
come and gone, huh?
Welcome,
He
Terry.
was on, and then he must have lost his connection or something.
Okay. Terry, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Terry, could you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Terry Burkhouse. I have been on the advisory council for several years, and I'm interim advisor for the college.
All right.
And I'm getting a call from Mary, so I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. Your background is great today. It doesn't look interstellar anymore. All right. So we are seeing if Nathan is going to rejoin us or not. We'll wait with that. Okay. Nathan. Okay. Nathan. Oh, and Nancy Bevins. All right. We've had several. Hi, Nathan. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sorry I'm late. Nathan Lindsay, I'm the Vice Provost for Academic Affairs.
All right. Wonderful to see you. And Nancy Bevins, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, let me unvideo myself. There we go. Sorry, got strong light coming in. Nancy Bevins. I am the Assistant Director at Ravalli County Museum. I also was going to teach last year at the college, but the class didn't make, but also the circumstances ended up being better, right, with everything being canceled, so.
All right. County Museum. All right. I think we have now introduced everyone that's present for the meeting. Okay. With that, is there any public comment on any agenda item that is not on, any item that is not on the agenda? So this is essentially open time for our public to comment on anything that's in their minds and hearts. Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the approval of our April meeting minutes. Is there any comment or correction? Remember, there is always a correction because Candy takes the minutes. So, and Sue, I always count on you to find those. So, any corrections?
I haven't found any.
What? All right.
John Grant's not here.
Oh, John is not here. Right. John is, I will talk with him later also. Okay. All right. So do I have a motion to approve the April minutes?
That's my job. I make a motion that we approve the April 22nd Zoom meeting minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
And I second.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you, Bob. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. All right. We have approval without incident on the April minutes. This is a first for me. All right. Any public comment on the minutes, the April minutes? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to move on here. Okay. Director's report. We got the report yesterday. We got the report, yay. And has everybody had a chance to read them? And are there questions or comments? Specifically, we are going to look at a discussion about the face-to-face protocol for coursework, and then the new fall semester start date, discuss that budget forecast, and then what fall will look like. So anything else on the director's report that people have a question or comment about? Okay, hearing none. What we're going to do is specifically have, you know, that clear conversation about our protocol, if we are able to have face-to-face courses, what that protocol will look like. So Tori, can you comment on that?
So I would say we're just still developing what that protocol is going to look like. Well, the governor is lifting the kind of all restrictions on June 1st. And technically, if the situation remains the same on August 19th, then there's really, in some ways, no mandatory protocol. It would just be resuming as normal. But that being said, we will be meeting with the Ravalli County Health Department. We will be consulting with the UM and the Montana University System for both those entities are providing guidelines at various level of detail. And so we're going to pull the information from local authorities and then the UM and then the state higher education authorities and then pull that all together. In terms of what the actual kind of boots on the ground situation would look like, I'm actually going to kill my video, well, so to speak. I'm going to turn my video off because I think I'm getting an unstable connection here.
Okay.
I think that'll help. I mean, we have, you know, the various kind of suggestions of physical distancing and masks and is kind of, you know, you're encouraging hand washing and having hand sanitizer around. Of course, having hand sanitizer around and encouraging people to wear masks is doable on our campus, you know, quote unquote, easily. The scenario of having to figure out how to physically distance in classrooms, that's very complicated. So we just have to see what the health authorities are going to recommend. And if that got to be such a limitation, then we would need to put more things remotely. I know that Nathan is on the call, not to put Nathan on the spot. But if he has anything to add to kind of what I'm saying, that would be great. Actually, before I let Nathan, give Nathan a chance, I will say that we have, obviously the university has said we're going to start 2 weeks earlier than had been planned and to be finished by November. Again, that's trying to gauge kind of getting ahead of a second spike. And so, of course, we can do that. That's, you know, it's not that that's easy to do for faculty, but, you know, that can be done within our building, so to speak. But once we get into having to physically distance in our building, and I imagine in most buildings, or, you know, classroom sort of buildings, that becomes complicated because of just the rooms are only so big. And if we're trying to if normally we have 30 students in a class and now we need to have them all being distanced, we would either need to open up new sections or cap class numbers, and that is not in the plan at the moment, and actually wouldn't be possible without an influx of quite a bit of funding to open up new sections and basically even additional space, because our building is not able to cope with many more sections of classes as considering the actual limitations of the facility. So it's kind of where we're at. But, you know, I mean, on the other hand, again, optimism reigns, and you know, we'll figure this out. But it just depends on what the expectations, you are and where the situation is come middle of August. Okay, Nathan, your thoughts.
Just building on what you were sharing, Tori. Later this week, there should be guidance coming out just in relation to what the revised schedule for the fall means and the impacts of that. So as what factors they need to consider. The following week, there should be guidance specifically on health practices and what should be done in terms of physical distancing and masks and other things. So a very strong group of folks with expertise has been meeting for the last month to provide the health guidelines that will go out to campus. And then the week after that, sometime in mid-June, an instructional planning group that I've been leading will be developing guidelines for classes and instruction. We're hoping to have as many people face-to-face as possible, but we're advising faculty to be flexible as students request accommodations, and we'll be trying to provide the resources and training for faculty so that they can prepare for the fall. So that's kind of the timeline for the next 3 to 4 weeks from the university.
Nathan, I have one question, and then I would like to ask Jennifer and Matt to sort of characterize how face-to-face would be achieved with the very different nature of those courses. Nathan, my question to you is, could a remote campus choose to be more restrictive, or I guess more restrictive than the guidelines coming from the mountain campus, or?
Yeah, we'll be providing these guidelines to deans and directors. So, if Bitterroot College or say our College of Arts and Media have different parameters that they need to consider, then there will be some flexibility there.
Okay, because I would really like to have Matt and Jennifer sort of characterize, because the nature of your courses is pretty different, what you see as barriers or as issues that need to be addressed should face-to-face occur. Or even if we continue with remote, what kinds of challenges you're facing. So could we start with Matt? And Matt, if you could kind of describe for us what you see as challenges and opportunities.
Mm-hmm. So in the face-to-face version of this, my courses have quite a bit of active learning built into them, and that's centered around small group work much of the time, whether it's editing or discussion. So physically, that would prove problematic to try and maintain 6 feet of distance in small group work. That way, there's also just the general question of student comfort, who wears a mask, who doesn't, where they're at with that. We have, and I know that our safety protocols ask that we close the door during instruction and lock it. So as far as ventilation goes, that's impacting, just the airflow in the room. And I'm certainly stringent about that. So I see those as the major blockers. Obviously, face-to-face is more present for students. I know that a lot of them prefer that. So the benefits of it is the socialization, being there and able to have a live discussion in person. My courses lend themselves fairly well to online instruction, as we learned in the quick turnaround there over spring break. We're able to break up into the breakout sessions on Zoom. I can share media, etc. I think, given our student population, bandwidth issues, and so the largest blocker that I encountered was internet speed and the ability to get on, to access the technology. And then I think it's just the student experience. I mean, we aren't selling a climbing gym and a food zoo and the physical experience of the U of M campus. So it's really just pared down to the simple classroom, desks and maybe a study room there at Bitterroot College. So I don't think students are necessarily missing out on the ancillary benefits of the college experience, but there is that social aspect of, I haven't run a class fully remote. I don't know how that impacts pedagogy to start the semester where we're distanced like this. I had the benefit of all of my students were in the same room. We developed a dynamic so that when we went remote for those last few weeks, they were comfortable with each other, having pushed through the first get to know you phase and willingness to talk in those small groups. I also see it as a challenge, and I know that we are mindful of course numbers in terms of student enrollment, but my question would be, are we talking 10 in a room is the max? And if so, how does that impact the way that we run classes, where 10, I believe, or 8 has been the benchmark for minimum number of students to run a section?
Okay, good question. All right. Jennifer, maybe you can characterize also for the very different nature of your class.
So yes, thank you. I teach chemistry, for those of you that don't know, and a computers course for business majors. The chemistry course I teach is an applied chemistry course, mostly for pre-nursing, but it also applies to other students going on to engineering and environmental studies as well. Husbandry, animal husbandry, wildlife science, things like this. So a lot of what I teach is problem-solving technique and increasing those types of skills in application for specifically to chemistry types of problems. So what I've often used in the past is small group work, as Matt has, and the ability for students to not only work together, but also bounce information off of each other. Small group work with respect to case studies and other more current chemistry type of problems that I wish for them to solve. Of course, with remote instruction, that is not possible, except for the use of Zoom, which allows us to work in these breakout rooms. So I can assign students to breakout rooms to work together. The only limitation in those breakout rooms is that the students have difficulty sharing information with each other. They can't really pass notebooks, show each other their work. So it makes that a little bit more challenging for them. Now, students that do have more access to technology can use their whiteboard on Zoom. Also has a whiteboard function or platform, so the students can use that and share that with each other. But that's only accessible to students that have touch screen technology, and not all students have access to that. So for those students that don't have access, they're relegated to using, the old pen and paper method.
Jennifer, are you breaking up or are we all breaking up?
I think it's just Jennifer.
Let me stop the video. I'll stop the video. Make sure I'm good.
Oh, there, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So if I stop my video, that might help a little bit.
Yes.
Teaching science using remote instruction is, I'm going to say, challenging at best. And it is definitely a lot harder. It takes a lot more time takes a lot more switching around between working on Zoom, working live on the board. So I have a camera, you can't see it now, but I have a camera set up on my ceiling so that it can shoot a dry erase board behind me so that I can switch from my PowerPoint presentation or the video I'm showing or the simulation that I'm using at the time, and I can switch to onboard work. Again, this takes a little bit extra time to have to switch around and use these different ways of doing it rather than just, okay, let's go to the board and we're going to go to the board. So my biggest concern with teaching in this way is the retention of the students, because working in their own personal environments, they're very distracted. The only reason I say this, I had students who were taking care of their parents while they were in class. I had students that were taking care of siblings while they were in class. I had students taking care of babies while they were in class. And so I know these students were not necessarily giving their full focus to the course materials. And I mean, that's just how it goes. These people, as some of you are, and I know I am, we are not only working from home, learning from home, we are also teaching our kids from home. So we have, I'm homeschooling my kids because they are not in school. So that is, you know, that's something we're balancing in between the moments here. And so that definitely makes it more difficult to learn, I think, in this environment as far as the students are concerned. And maybe India can speak more on that, but this is just what I've observed. So I mean, I think I agree with Matt as far as the remote teaching. The largest block is the access to technology and the internet connectivity. I had a lot of my students who would have difficulties at home with their internet, would drive to campus, take their classes from the car. The other thing I have difficulty with, which is different from math, is the summative assessment. So this is difficult for me because I have to have examinations for my students to show their acumen, and that's very challenging for me. Now I know the UM is very supportive, particularly in the chemistry department, of using online platforms and just having multiple choice examinations. While this seems prudent, it does not show that the students can actually perform the problem solving in an effective way. And that's what concerns me the most, is their ability to apply the information that I'm giving them. Particularly those students who are pre-nursing and pre-med for obvious reasons. I had to go into the ER a couple of years ago, and the first thing I asked my nurse was, do you know dimensional analysis? And she laughed. So this is a very important issue for me and for everybody that needs good nurses who know how to think. And so this is something that I'm teaching my students how to do. And so it's difficult to assess whether or not they can do that just using multiple choice examination. So I'm trying to find other ways of assessing their abilities and their skills. So that is providing a big block to instruction, is finding innovative ways to assess. And I'm able to do it for, you know, using formative assessment. That's fine, that I can do in class, but it's the examinations and things that are providing a little bit of a challenge. To make them of the rigor that I think is worthy of the level of this class and of what I want to make sure the students understand. Of course, the other aspect of it is the lab portion. In lab, we need to be face-to-face. There is just no way around it. I was able to do half of the semester face-to-face before this hot mess all started, and we had to all sequester in our little bunkers. So the last half of the semester, I did one experiment here at the house while they watched me do it. So they got to see some technique there. But the rest of it, I had to use simulations. And while that's fine, it doesn't give them that tactile, you know, kinesthetic practice with the instruments. And so the students will lose that if we have to have lab completely remotely taught. There's just no way around it. There's only so much. I mean, I have to have the students be able to show me that they know how to measure, do measurements, how to record measurements and how to perform using different instruments. And so the only way I could do that is by sending them those instruments home, and that's not feasible from an OSHA standard. So that is something that I'm concerned with the fall. And now I am totally fine with doing face-to-face for lab work, and I've spoken with Tori about this, about what I would like to see, which is what I've seen in other areas of the country, which is plexiglass protection between lab stations. And then, of course, having students more, more physically distanced from each other. And then the use of masks. Now, while a recommended use of mask is nice, it isn't very pragmatic when it comes to the propagation of this virus. As we all know, this virus can be propagated asymptomatically days before symptoms show up. And so a person who is asymptomatic is shedding virus on a, on a contagion level. And having people in a closed classroom is a real problem, especially for a 3-hour duration, which is our lab. So, I've read studies about how one infected person can infect an entire room of people within the course of 50 minutes. And so I'm spending as I said, 3 hours. And so I would want to take every precaution possible to make sure that I can guarantee, or at least somewhat guarantee, the safety of my students. So I would want everybody in masks and have that plexiglass protection. Of course, Tori's suggestion to me was that we talk to the Department of Health, which I'm totally supportive of, to make sure that we're using the right protocols. But of course, that is another issue of funding and resources to be able to have that kind of protection. I'm concerned, of course, with the student body that is susceptible, but not only them. I'm also concerned with other faculty members in the building that are susceptible, that are more higher risk. And then, of course, people living with those students who are high susceptible people. Students who have kids who are immunocompromised, or who have parents living with them who are immunocompromised, are the ones that come mostly in light. And of course, myself, who also live with my son who has asthma, and my husband who is a cardiac patient. So these are high-risk people, and that's my primary concern, is my students and, of course, the other faculty and staff in the building. So I'd like to be able to say that, I would like all the precautions to be taken as much as possible if I'm going to have labs on campus, which it's really impossible to do labs remotely when you're dealing with chemicals. There's just no way around it. And I don't believe the students receive the same level of instruction if they're not working with and learning about the safety and usage of those chemicals and that equipment, if they're not there themselves doing it. So anyway, I don't know if I've given you a full picture of what you wanted to know, Candy.
Yeah.
But I think I speak for the other STEM faculty, at least, because I've spoken with Jamie Middleton and Eric Grant about this, and we have experienced a lot of similar types of limitations to remote teaching, even though we're able to do it. It takes a lot more time. Well, the other thing I forgot to mention is that the support for remote instruction is about double that of in-class instruction. Or face-to-face instruction. I've had to double my office hours. Not only that, but office hours of which none of the faculty are paid. I want to make sure everybody knows that. Faculty offer office hours to our students to support them, but we are not paid for those office hours, but we do it because we want to help our students and provide them with as much support as we can as they go through this and face-to-face class in general. But we've had to double those efforts, as well as provide extra support off of office hours in way of appointments, so that the students can get their questions answered. Because again, it's difficult when you don't have models or things that you can hand over to students and say, okay, let me see what your work looks like. You know, we can't do that when it's remote. It takes a lot more time and effort. And some students get really exhausted in the technology. And of course, there's blue light that comes out from all of our monitors, and that is documented to kind of waste your energy a little bit, to take, you know, a little bit of energy out of you. So when you're teaching all day, you know, using this format and then having office hours on top of it and then appointments on top of that, by the end of the day, you're pretty wasted energy-wise. So it does take a lot out of you to do it this way, and I know it does for the students as well. So the big challenge for us as faculty is to keep those students motivated throughout this process, especially on Fridays and at the end of the semester. That is a big challenge, but you know, so it's doable. It's not optimal, and I would not choose to do this for the remainder of my days. But if we do face-to-face classes and we do use physical distancing, the other consideration to keep in mind for those students that wish to continue remote instruction, because of whatever reason, because they have a compromised person at home, or because they themselves are ill, or they have someone there that is ill with them and they have to care for them, or they have to sequester and quarantine themselves due to exposure. The other thing we need to consider is that we would have to provide face-to-face as well as a video of those lectures, and that requires to have an AV person on hand in order to manage that AV. So, so that, I mean, while I'm doing remote instruction, I have control over recording and all that's fine, but I do not have control if I'm teaching face-to-face over my camera, switching from, you know, me at the podium to me at the board. That takes a little bit more finesse, and it's going to take, again, more time out of my lecture, and it would mean that we would need to fit the classrooms with a board camera, and so that's a different challenge that we'd have to consider in the classroom.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just another thing I just thought of that we need to think about as well, is fitting the classroom with somebody who can be a technical support person during those times of lecture, which we may or may not have at access to resource-wise.
Right, right.
On top of having the semester starting earlier and like shaving off 7 days.
Well, that's a huge challenge for me, because that's 7 lectures. I don't have 7 lectures I can afford without drastically altering the course objectives. I mean, I just can't teach all of the problem-solving techniques and teach all the course materials and shave off 7 lectures. There's just isn't possible unless I speed up my lectures significantly. And I think that would be detrimental to the students, and it would cause a lot of them to drop, and a lot of them wouldn't be able to keep up with it. And that's my biggest concern, is that student success would be greatly affected. So I know we're gonna speak on this, you know, and how we can solve that problem. But I'm teaching summer school up to August 14th. So I don't even know how I'm going to be preparing for labs or my courses, because we're starting the following Wednesday. So I won't even have final exams from summer graded before we even start. I'm not sure if I can do it, but it's another problem. So, I mean, this is just something to consider as we have bumped this back 2 weeks. While I understand the reasoning for it, I'm all for not having people travel during Thanksgiving. I question why we could not have just went to remote instruction after Thanksgiving and just kept our normal schedule. Why, I don't know why that it wasn't an option that was considered, but all is done, and so now we have to adjust to that. My concern is that the students receive the quality of education that they have come to know from Bitterroot College, because there is an expectation. People are coming to my class because they know from their other people that they know, friends and family members that have taken my class. They know what they can expect from taking my class. I want to be able to deliver that same quality of education for them. And I'm concerned, I should say, at the speed at which I'll have to take this, considering remote instruction. And we may be remote instructing. I'm expecting to have to do that. It would be a wonderful thing if we could go face to face, but I'm expecting to have to remote instruct. So anyway, I hope I've enlightened you, Candy, with information you wanted to know.
Yes, thank you very much. It is.
Candy?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to say something. And, you know, maybe this is more of a Bitterroot College, Missoula College, you know, two-year college students that often are, you know, non-traditional or, you know, just coming back to school, taking a few classes. But I've had a few calls since the president's messages started going out, concerned about the switch in schedule, that they had signed up for fall classes based upon schedule, based upon their work schedule, their child care schedules, etc., and are concerned about you know, coming back to school early. Nobody's complaining about getting done before Thanksgiving, but how they're going to fit in coming back early, and if because of the shortening of the entire semester, if they're going to have to go additional days per week. So there are concerns. I haven't had any students say they were just going to drop and not attend this fall semester, but there is concern out there.
Okay. Nathan, do you feel like there is an opening for added feedback about the schedule?
Yes, so the president's office at has received quite a bit of feedback from students after the announcement, similar to what Terry shared. A lot of the feedback has been about students worried about how it will affect the end of summer and their earning potential if they're, you know, if they were planning to work for those last weeks in August. And a lot of people are making really good money during those times with tourism or other things, firefighting. So we recognize it is an impact. In the message to faculty, we'll be strongly encouraging them to provide accommodation for students, as we have in the past, you know, for firefighters, smoke jumpers who had to join late in the semester. So that's just moved up, and we'll be asking for that accommodation. Regarding the question about why we didn't have 2 weeks of remote after the fact, two reasons for that. One is there are a large number of classes, faculty who said it's very hard for us to do remote. I mean, we made it happen because it was required, but if at all possible, we'd ask that it be face-to-face. And two, OCHI asked that we just be done by Thanksgiving. So we will be granting exceptions if there are folks who say for our discipline or our accreditation requirements, we need to go beyond Thanksgiving. There will be some classes or fields like that, but generally we're asking people to be done by Thanksgiving. So that's a long answer, Candy, but we are still accepting or, you know, happy to have feedback about the schedule. I don't think the schedule is going to change at this point, but the feedback may help us to be more sensitive or accommodating for various student issues or faculty issues that are occurring.
Okay, Jennifer.
I just wanted to respond. As faculty, we're already set up for remote instruction. So this would not be a difficult leap to make because we just did it. Now, while we had to do it under emergency, that was hard. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I was in there. We spent a week of spring break that I was expecting to be able to prepare for other things, doing, you know, getting ready for COVID instruction. So I totally hear that and feel that. I just think most of us were already set up for remote. So it wouldn't be that difficult of a leap to make to just say, okay, we're just going to go remote for these last 2 weeks. This is also automatically assuming the fall semester is going to be face-to-face, given the fact that we're going to have influx of visitors over the summertime, and we're seeing increasing numbers of cases, increasing numbers of hospitalization, and the saturation of hospital systems in places coming over from the East Coast through the Central America, the Central United States, I should say. I'm expecting to see that same kind of increase here, just because we have people coming here for vacation and hunting, fishing, things like this. You know, I mean, we might end up being remotely instructing anyway, so we don't really even know. I mean, this is one of the reasons I know why we haven't received any, understanding of budgets and things, because we just still don't even know what we're looking at, you know. So I just want to keep that idea, if it's possible, to keep that idea still on the table. And I understand that OCHI wants to do that. It's just on the front lines, things look a little differently when you're talking instruction. So they might not have a full picture of, you know, how that shift is going to impact student learning. And that's, again, what I think Matt and I are mostly concerned about.
Yes. India.
I was going to say that I sort of expect that second wave to happen, as you said, because the numbers are going up and higher saturation in hospitals. Also, I feel like the demographic we have in our little valley, I don't know about you guys, but I run into a lot of people who think it's all a hoax because they haven't seen it, and still come up and touch you and pat you on the back. And so, yeah, I fully expect to see perhaps the second wave maybe hit a little harder just because people haven't addressed it as seriously as I think we should. I mean, I'm glad we're still doing well, but who's to say? And as far as, I mean, to jump backward a little bit, from the student perspective, I did talk to, I hope it's okay I did jump back, but I did run into other students, and I didn't realize, for me, remote instructing was difficult, but it wasn't that bad. Like, coursework ended up being great, everything got cinched up the way it needed to. I had 2 online classes anyway, but I did run into another student, I might have brought this up last meeting, who the whole experience for him is being here and the social aspect. And he sounded like he wanted to quit, but we were already halfway through, so I guess I won't. But his heart really wasn't, you know, that face-to-face was why he's there. You know, he has so much value, so much stock put into that. As well as internet problems. I knew a lot of students who had a lot of internet problems or didn't have internet at all. So Rosie kind of ignored, we social distance. I let her come over and we washed hands and we did everything as best as we could, but we tried to sit far apart, but I was letting her use the internet because we had internet up at my house. So internet was a big issue. And then I was in Jamie's class and I'm puppy training. So I have a Great Pyrenees who's crawling on me the whole class. And as far as distractions go, and not everybody's really mad about that. Most people are happy to see dogs, but it's still distracting.
Yeah.
As well as, you know, that's just a puppy. I don't really have many obligations. I kind of take care of my mom, I take care of the dog, but people have kids. People are really taking care of their parents full time. Like, distractions at home are something else. I do miss being in the classroom where you can just sit, focus. And Jennifer, I can't believe, I did not know you guys aren't getting paid for your office hours. You can tell from my face, I almost started crying because I'm sure you're just, I know you just in terms of the advisory council, but I had Jamie's class this last semester, who's an angel, and she stayed on, I don't know how many extra hours with us after class. I don't know how many hours and how many other students, and it was hours. So once this is over, she's getting a bouquet of flowers from me, Lysol or something, because she really did take all that extra time to make sure that we all did well. And I mean, I can't say enough about the faculty here at the Bitterroot College and how well everyone's done. And I hear that, you know, from my peers who are in classes. Like, I didn't have a class with Matt this last semester, but Rosie had a great time. And like, you guys really put in so much effort to see all this through. And I know that me and my peers, those I talk directly to, really, really appreciate it. And I'm sorry I don't get paid for the office hours, but literally those office hours saved my life in Jamie's math class, because that stuff is hard. Like, we want to cry just looking at it hard. And if it hadn't been Jamie, I wouldn't have made it through class, especially not through remote learning. So that's a little bit of the student perspective, which everybody kind of already, we covered a little bit, but I thought I'd just add on.
Well, I don't know if I should have mentioned that, but I just wanted to, because I didn't know how many people out there really realized that aspect of it. And I'm not asking for anything. I just want everybody to understand the perspective that, you know, faculty are very dedicated, and we love what we do. We love working with students, and that's why we do it. But a lot of our efforts, you know, in this remote environment are just, you know, it's just a lot more personal time that we're investing to do it. And so I just, you know, I just think that's an important thing to notice.
Well, I'm so glad you said it. And again, it wasn't just even the office hours she had after class. Like, we'd finish class and she'd hang out as long as anybody needed us there. And then she would make herself available the rest of the time. She's like, this is the email. This is the, I will be there whenever, wherever. And that she's got 2 kids. She was homeschooling, like, and she had a new puppy. So it's just,
yeah, she has 3. She has her niece lives there too, and her parents.
I think she might have recently moved out, but maybe they moved, I don't know. But yeah, so she's got a lot on her plate, and I just really respect you guys for putting in all the time and effort that you guys do, Jennifer and Matt and everybody. Victoria, like, thank you so much, because
yes,
we really appreciate it.
Yes. These are universally challenging times that I hope we never encounter again. And I think the learnings from this time are mind-blowing. The nooks and crannies that we have found in this process are phenomenal, but I hope we're done someday. And I think, India, your comment about and Matt, well, and Jennifer, the social aspect of human beings and the social aspect of their learning is fundamental and cannot be ignored. I mean, I am hoping that this time is just, we're going to make it through as a construct that isn't sustainable over the long haul, but will help us bridge to a time when we are able to be together again. So even our meetings, our advisory council meetings aren't as much fun. It's great to see you, but I really like seeing you in person. So thank you. I think that was really a thorough characterization of what the challenges are. And I guess I would say to both Dan and Nathan that I think Dan is probably experiencing very much the same thing for Missoula College, that there are communication loops still available kind of for on time, in real time accommodations to be considered. So India, did you have another comment or?
It's just kind of silly. I was so excited because I thought we were doing like, some of us were going to meet in person with masks on. So I showed up to college like, yeah, I'm going to see some people. And Tori's like, oh, no, you can come in. I'll get you a laptop. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess it's so good to see you. So you can tell I'm at school. But I'm also really excited to just be in the school building again because I missed it.
Yes, so. Yes. Sue.
I have a question for Jennifer and Matt. Did you have any students that you never heard from again once we had to do social distancing, that just kind of disappeared?
Yes, before, I'm sorry, Matt, I hope you don't mind if I go first. Matt's like, yeah, you have to go first. No, yeah, but when we started this during spring break, so as I was putting everything together, I made sure I called each of my students personally. Like, I got their phone numbers and I called them. I also sent out emails to everybody because I wanted to make sure I was able to touch base with every single student, made sure I understood their technology. If they needed a computer, I wanted to hook them up with Mary so that she could issue one to them. I wanted to make sure that they had access. And so, you know, to the internet, and that it was adequate for the needs, not only of my chemistry students, but also my computer students, where we do everything online. So I made sure that I spoke with every single student personally. And yet I still had some students that did not, even though they understood the whole thing. We did a Zoom practice. I Zoom practiced with them. You know, I sent them a link. Okay, get on this link. And I was on the phone with them while they got on the link, the whole thing. Despite all that preparation, I still had students that disappeared, that did not show up. And again, it's a socioeconomic chasm that was created by this, because the students that did not show up either did not have adequate access. They felt they didn't have adequate access, so they just gave up because of that, or because they were homeschooling their kids and they were a single parent and there was nobody else there. So to help them with that process. So I know those two reasons directly from my classes. I don't know if Matt had any other experience, but I did lose some students that I never heard from again. And I don't know why. I called them afterwards and left message, say, hey, I didn't see you in class today, and da-da-da, and sent them emails. Still no response, despite the fact that I spoke with them personally during spring break about this. So yeah, kind of disappointing at best.
Matt, did you lose some people?
I only had 2 that disappeared entirely and didn't communicate. They were already on a downward slope prior to shifting to remote instruction. What I ran into were people whose work schedule just prevented them from joining class at the regular time. I found it common actually in people who are CNAs working in care facilities in the Valley. Had a lot of those who couldn't tune in. So
sure.
I recorded the class lectures, made myself available on demand, you know, certain hours of the day. And then just the nature of my classes, so I did English writing, you can do that outside. You know, a lot of it is done outside of class time. So I had a few students who just said, listen, I can't tune into the class, but they continued to submit the work, and that was, you know, enough. And I just trusted that a lot of them were watching the class discussions.
Yeah, I had that same experience now, where I students that were CNAs where their work schedules were actually upped. Yeah. You know, so they were put on 12-hour schedules instead of 10-hour schedules. So everything changed for them. And so then they couldn't attend class anymore. And so they were doing the same thing. They were just watching the recordings, and then we were arranging exams outside of a regular time, things like this.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So we do have, we've clearly identified some of the pitfalls and the challenges, and between Tori and myself, we'll continue to communicate, Nathan, with you about some alternatives or options. I think the best example is if a class can be done well post Thanksgiving electronically, that would seem very safe. So I guess that might be a question for the future. Jennifer.
And then protocols for safe labs. So I know labs are running up at the UM campus over summer. I don't know if they're using plexiglass between lab stations, but I do know they're using masking. I was curious if that masking was recommended or mandatory, and if we had the ability to make it mandatory for the BC campus for lab courses.
Generally, what I've heard, Jennifer, is that masks cannot be required. We've asked again and again, and for various legal or other policy implications, we can strongly recommend them. But again and again, we've heard that the farthest we can go is strong recommendation. And we will be providing guidance on labs. We have a subcommittee of our instructional planning group that's focusing specifically on smaller spaces, labs, like art, music spaces, studio labs, other things. So that'll be forthcoming mid-June.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Tori, we are still on the director's report. I do feel like we have talked about sub-item 1, safety protocol, and the new fall start date and the compression of that timeline and that challenge. So let's move on to budget forecast. You put in the director's report some potential percentages. Could you try to describe for us then what that might look like given the staffing at the Bitterroot College?
So without going into real specific detail, just because of HR concerns and having notified kind of all staff of what we might be projecting, still a few people that I haven't spoken to. But in general, the 8 and 11% cuts, I guess I should back up. So there's no gravy, there's no fat left to cut, so there's no more toilet paper, there's no more, you know, copy paper, that kind of stuff that we can cut out of the budget that had already happened in previous years. And so I mean, we're down to, you know, we used to budget say a couple $100 for faculty meetings or $500 for graduation. So there is no, all of that has been cut. So subscriptions to, you know, being a chamber member, all that kind of stuff, that's all gone. But that is just not very much money to begin with. And when we're looking at, our budget right now, not including benefits, is about $500,000 in general fund money. And so if you're looking at a 10% cut, that's $50,000. About $100,000 of our $500,000 is already locked up in our building. And so really we're looking at cutting, you know, minimum $50,000 out of $400,000. And then because we can't not pay the loan on the building, we can't not have snow removal, trash, utilities, that kind of stuff. So we're looking to really take our cut out of, you know, the 8, 10, 8, 11, or 14% out of $400,000, which is all faculty and staff. And so there's nothing to do except either cut complete positions. And so we have some modeling where we cut full positions, and then we have some modeling where we try to leave all positions intact, but then just cut people in terms of their hours. So take, you know, everybody down to 3/4 time. So that was one way to get to some of that, to get to some of those models. Even at the least amount, at the 8%, we would only have, the only person that remains as a full-time employee is Mary Talene. And everybody else, including myself, would be down to 80%, or, you know, 0.8 or 0.75 in hours. And if we go the route where we cut full positions, then we can salvage, I think we can keep 2 full-time employees. But there are only 3 full-time employees, are just myself, Mary, and our advisor who's not here yet, our new advisor. So it's you know, it's not pretty, but we do understand this isn't something where leadership here is, you know, blaming the UM or you know, blaming state appropriations or whatever. I mean, this is you know, a 100-year event. What was I going to mention? Oh, and all the scenarios also include cutting at least 2 courses. So if we didn't cut a couple classes, then we're looking at most of the staffing being under 3/4 time, which then gets really hard on everyone. So college courses, the scenarios are to cut, you know, 2 to 6 college courses, depending on how, you know, what the the end result is in terms of the budget cut that needs to take place. Cutting college courses is, you know, I mean, that's what we're selling. So that is an awful place to be in. But we do have to staff. So when you start cutting, you know, you're past the meat, you're into the bone. It is very, very sobering. I don't know what else to say. I think that right now, all we've done is we put models forward. Oh, wait. It's just Dave Beatty's calling, and I'm just admitting him into the meeting.
Oh, excellent.
I think he'll, let me just answer it and let him know I let him in.
Okay.
I just saw it and I let you in.
Okay.
I will say, one of the things that the administrative team has done in the last week is we have put together a kind of a mini outreach effort that we're going to implement in the next, we should have it implemented the week of June 8th. But it includes it includes Facebook ads. It includes some getting some banners up around the community that Bitterroot College is open, that we're enrolling, that if people are not want to be in college but are choosing not to you know, to move to Bozeman or you know, wherever, that we're here. You can get yourself started. You can transfer to was it one of the residential campuses, you know, in another semester. But again, to try to just let people know that we're here, and that if they're making decisions not to leave the community because of the pandemic, that they can start at the Bitterroot College. So we're you know, hoping to not only keep the students that we, and to get the students that we normally would get, but to try to get the students that are looking to make some different decisions because of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you know, it's a waiting game that we can do a little bit of action in, and we're trying to do some action, but it is a waiting game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there also have been extraordinary articles about two-year programs in community colleges in times of COVID that really elevates their importance because of their accessibility, and relationship-based learning is making us, I think, really fundamental to our community. So I'm hoping people can view this option that way, that it's a good answer. So, okay. Dave, welcome. And we will keep going and hope you can just chime in. Yes. Okay.
I just wanted to comment on the budget situation and outreach, and while I absolutely agree and think it's a great idea to look at different outreach ideas and implement them, you know, the results of the outreach, and then Candy, your comment about the even more importance of two-year programs. One concern of mine would be that possibly more and more students do want to come to Bitterroot College, yet if with the budget models, several people are, you know, down to 0.75, they're not full-time, you know, what kind of an experience are the students going to have trying to get assistance?
Yeah, yeah. And our flexibility in being able to budget-wise respond if we did have an appreciable increase in registration, would we have the financial resources to be able to meaningfully respond to that? I don't know, Nathan, are there considerations for situational budgets at all?
Well, they're in flux, I guess, with all the feedback Tori's provided. I would just encourage continued conversation on what's what's happening and what the concerns are.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be imperfect no matter what for a long time. And so how we creatively fill some of those gaps, I guess I would wonder, and this is just an idea, if we had a local company or a local individual who wanted to situationally provide conditional funding given the COVID crisis, how I guess I don't expect an answer, Nathan, but I think it could be a consideration that if there were someone locally that wanted to contribute money, how we could structure that on a one-time basis, I think is going to be a potential question. So, all righty. Thank you, Nathan. All right. Okay, I feel like with the director's report, we've talked about all of our items because we also did address the fall remote classes. Is there any other input by council members on Part A of the director's report? Hearing none, just on the Part A piece, any public comment on the Part A? Hearing none, let's move on to the Part B, and that is the Bitterroot Valley Community College vote and what has happened since we have found ourselves initially in an uncharted limbo is how we were describing it right after the vote. As a piece of background for you all, the trustees-elect met, and the Rockwah group held a meeting for them for informational purposes, and that was last Monday, not this Monday, but the Monday before. And I want to shout out to Dave Beatty because he did an extraordinary PowerPoint to the trustees-elect to share process and share the vision of moving to legislature and solving some of the situational challenges for all two-year programs or potential programs in the state. I felt like the trustees-elect had were gaining a clear grasp of what the nooks and crannies and the challenges are. And I also feel like they had good questions. So just for the council members and the public, the trustees-elect have no official capacity until legislature approves the organization of the Bitterroot Valley Community College. So in the intervening time, what they are endeavoring to do is gain information, understand process, and have those conversations. They are trying to meet routinely now. Sue can speak perhaps to that. The next part of the process is that the regents at their meeting last week conducted a conversation about essentially now what, and the attorney did a nice job of outlining what that process includes. And so at the regents meeting, I felt like that was very much informational in nature about what are the next steps for the regents and what their role is and what their role is not. And so we have kind of an intersection of two roads in that the Bitterroot Valley College piece goes forward from an informational perspective of what the regents need from the Rockwell group, information that is needed, the budget, coursework, vision for the college. So that is one aspect of the path. And then the other aspect is very much, I just had a little grandson come in. And he's pretty dang cute if you want to see him. So then the other aspect is, okay, confirming with the university main campus about continued support and maintenance of Bitterroot College in that intervening time. So there were many, many questions, of course, a couple of them unanswered. But I really feel like both the trustees-elect have passion and energy around that process of moving to the legislative process of approval. And I feel like there's a lot of energy and commitment around a continuing solid relationship with Mountain Campus. So that's kind of the gestalt of what I felt like we were, the place we found ourselves. So Dave and Nathan and Tori and Sue, other comments and input about where we find ourselves?
No, it was a good summary.
Dave, Tori, any? I really have to thank Dave. He did such a thorough overview for the trustees. It really precipitated good questions and identified some places where we need to find out kind of things. So I felt like maybe Sue, you could comment on that day.
I thought Dave did a fabulous job, and I thought Candy did a great job giving us background and helping us get a little more organized. We had our third meeting Tuesday, and I guess we'll probably meet every Tuesday from here on out. We're starting to get organized. It was a group of 7 people. I had met one of them just recently, and I knew one of them. The other 5 people were complete and total strangers to me, which I think it was that way with every one of us. So we're all just kind of getting comfortable and getting a plan. I know that we discussed that we're trying to gain as much info as possible, and that they want to have meetings again with ROCWA, the Bitterroot Advisory Council, and after the election, the legislature group from the Bitterroot Valley. So we will be wanting to pick everybody's brain and get an idea and see if we don't all have the same goal in mind, which I think we all pretty much do.
Yes, thank you. And I'm realizing that we're using I'm sorry, Dave.
Sure, I guess a couple of things. One is I just noticed in my inbox I was invited to the Tuesday meeting of the trustees elect, but I haven't had a chance to read the email message. I just saw the headline on it. So I'm certain I'll be available, and I'll be prepared for that. So one thing that has transpired since that meeting that I presented at was that, and the Regents meeting, is that I've had some discussions with the Commissioner of Higher Education's office about about the content and the level of specificity in the proposal that is going to be coming forward. And I think one place that I think I have, and so what I've discovered is that I'm dealing with Tyler Trevor, one of the deputy commissioners, is that he had a desire, because apparently he was around last time this happened, to make sure that we define the information requirement well, and that we not that neither neither we provide too much information or that they ask for too much. So there's sort of a idea of, okay, let's get things defined correctly. He gave me a kind of a laydown of items he thought were going to be required that aligned pretty well with what I thought was going to be required. However, he did say that the 2-year subcommittee of the regents wants to be involved in this process of defining the information. So he was clear that he says, whatever I'm presenting here, showing you here, is clearly draft, because the regents, quote, want to be involved in defining the information requirement. I haven't followed up on that yet, and I will. The other thing is, a point I tried to make to him was to make a distinction between the actual organization of the community college district and its funding, which are separate legislative activities. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that they get intertwined together, it complicates matters. And after we discussed that a bit, I'm confident that he was agreeing with me that yes, he asked me to send. I sent him a lengthy email message that he wished to share with some of the regents, laying out the reasons in law and in good practice why these are separate questions. And it kind of boils down to the following: until a community college district exists, you can't have a college. But you can certainly have a community college district without a college being present. What you get out of that is you actually have elected trustees who are empowered to do something. They can run levies and do things like that, and do the detailed planning that's necessary. So I wanted to be sure that as we move to the legislature and we have the regents weighing in, the central question they need to weigh in on is whether we should form a community college district. And I said, really there's three general criteria, although I think two of them go together, but let's just say 3 general criteria are, is there a need for a community college district in Ravalli County? And so whatever information you're asking for from the trustees elect, who I think are the ones that are going to be presenting this, is you need to answer that question. I mean, if there's not a need for one, why would the legislature create a district? The other is there a, what is the plan, or what do you seek to provide to meet this need, and do you have a conceptual plan for getting there? Not a detailed plan, unless you're planning on opening up during this, actually opening a college during this biennium, because then you need a detailed plan, because then you have to go to step A for legislative action and get an appropriation. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I didn't explain that particularly well, but I want to be sure we divorce the question of, as much as possible, because funding will always come up. But this is not, the question on organization of the district is not a funding question. That funding question is answered elsewhere. And we're working on making sure that going forward, the law actually makes that clear, because obviously it doesn't right now.
Right.
So that's all I had to add to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. That's really clear and so very helpful. I wanted to,
a quick comment. I think that the trustees elect did finally get the concept that this all needs to be conceptual.
Okay.
That really helps to get our focus on that. We don't need to worry too much about little nitpicky things, but that we want to have the general conceptual idea of what the community college is going to look like and act like and hopefully become.
Okay.
And Sue, what I'll do is, you know, as soon as I do need to nail, I do need to nail Ochi down on this. And as soon as I have solid information, we sharing it with you.
Okay, thank you.
I think a question of clarification I would have after listening to the Regents meeting is that toward the end of it, Brock Tessman referred to the group pursuing this, and for Dan and Monique, locally we are the group seeking independent community college status was called ROCWA, Ravalli County Workforce Alliance is what that stands for. And so I don't know if the trustees elect need to become kind of technically part of that group, or if the work can be totally done by the trustees elect. I just know that in the meeting, he referred to the ROCWA group technically as the organizing committee, as the group to provide information. So I think we need to sort of bring those together.
I think right. I think there needs to be some clarity there. Once again, it's a gap in the law in terms of how that might be approached, because there's certainly two entities that should have that you have a choice between for taking the lead, going to presenting information to the regions and going to legislate. One is the ROCWA group, and the other is the trustees elect.
Right.
And I think, you know, I think it's probably important to know that it's probably important to know that from an official standpoint. I have a hard time seeing how you divorce the two activities. I think that the institutional knowledge from ROCWA is essential for the trustees elect, and there's only a little bit of overlap between the two organizations. And also, our group, this advisory council, you know, our focus, I think, is, and I missed the first part of the meeting, but our focus is on running Bitterroot College as it exists now, both immediately and during whatever transitional period hopefully takes place as before Bitterroot Valley Community College is set up. And yet it's not completely separate, because there's ROCWA interaction there. And I'm sure some of the questions that need to be put together, some of the information that needs to be put together for probably the trustees going forward. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my conception of how I think it's going to come down. But a lot of that resides with this group.
Mm-hmm.
Some regards with ROCWA, and Tori has a ton of institutional information that she can dump on people. I mean, the old Swanson's old studies that the late Larry Swanson studies and things like that are going to probably be essential building blocks for making the case. So I think, you know, I think eventually there will be an agreement or Ochi will determine who needs to be officially presenting something to the regents. But I just don't see that as being, I still see this as being a three-part operation. Our organization, ROCWA, and the trustees elect, because I don't think any one of these it makes sense for any one of these to go forward independently without any coordination with the other two entities.
Right.
I very much agree with that. And we did have quite a limited or extended discussion concerning that.
I was
Tori
looking
gave us some good information and some good suggestions.
Yes. I was looking at my calendar. I cannot off the top of my head remember the day, but we do representationally have a meeting with John Harbour, the provost leaving in July, to initiate the conversation about the continued pathway for Bitterroot College and securing that understanding of our continued existence. So just so the council members know, we are working on that element simultaneously. So a couple things going on. All right.
Candy?
Yes.
I had in my notes that that's going to be June 5th, that it's you and Frank and Dave, I believe, and one member from the trustee-elect, which we're not quite sure who that's going to be.
Okay, yeah, and I am gonna have to check make sure my calendar is up to date here. Okay, any other comments or questions on that aspect? Dave?
Yeah, please update my calendar too, because I wasn't showing a meeting on the 5th of June.
Right.
I just need to know about it because I'm pretty sure I'm open the 5th of June.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't have it, so we will work on our calendars and get those synchronized. Okay. Okay. Any public comment on Bitterroot Valley Community College, item 5B? Dan and Monique, I'm looking at your names, so hearing none. All right.
Let me just say, this is Dan.
Yes.
And no, we're just watching with great interest and just want everyone to know that no matter how things shake out in this journey, we are excited to work with you guys in every way that we can. We have so much common interest and want to support you at every step.
Great. Thanks. Thank you very much. That's great. All right. Moving on, I believe because I did not in Seattle have the ability to print the updated agenda, I do believe on our agenda we are at that point of looking at the council member term endings. And I believe Bob is at the end of your term. And of course, we are sad to see you go, but you know you can take a year hiatus and then come back. So we need to look at replacing Bob's position. And then Tim is going off to Helena to be deputy superintendent. And so he will be leaving the council. And I guess my recommendation would be, of course, you could do this from afar, but also the person replacing you in Corvallis could be a meaningful option. So with that, I believe I did send to you all an email that said, do I have someone interested in heading up the, I'm going to call it search committee for new members?
Candy, you did. I've done it the last 2 times. So if someone else would step up, I might help them, but I really don't want to be in charge.
Okay, so is there another individual who is interested in helping us out with this?
Well, Frank's not here. We could appoint him.
Frank.
Or John Grant. Isn't that?
John. Oh, John Grant.
Okay, John Grant. Yes.
John Grant.
Where'd Frank come
you said
from?
Frank before. I thought, I got to find out who Frank
John.
is. But you mean John.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be, okay.
He's
Yes.
been voluntold.
I could talk with John.
Candy, also, I was wondering, this is sort of related, but I will be finished at the Bitterroot College after this next semester. So do we worry about me moving on when that happens?
Our bylaws say that it needs to be a current or past student of the college. And India, I think you're bringing up a great question. We kind of discussed this last time we revised our bylaws, and we felt like, yes, we're a 2-year program, and so perhaps students move through our system fairly quickly, but that we really would look to our graduates, especially recent graduates, to continue to give us meaningful feedback. So I would invite you to stay with us. The terms are 3 years for students also. So it may be that in the 3rd year, it might be challenging for you because you might be off in Washington, D.C. leading the nation. But yes, we would welcome your continued participation. You have been extraordinary. Having said that, I know that Quinn feels really badly that he's not been able to attend the meetings. And so for the other council members, just as a piece of background, I have met either individually with Quinn to get, to get feedback, and then India and Quinn and I have met once to say, okay, what's going on from the student perspective. So we still try to get feedback from him. I will chat with him about if his continued interest in participating, and if he's just feeling really badly that he's not in our meetings. India, I'm going to ask you and Quinn to maybe talk with other students about their interests.
Sure.
So we
So
are
from the search committee question to work on that, but I was just curious.
Yeah, good. So the positions we will be looking to replace are Tim's and Bob's. So with that, would you like me to work with John Grant to see if he wants to head that committee up?
Sure.
Okay. All right, John, when you don't show up, half of life is showing up. You weren't able to be here, so we're going to tag you. I can also talk with Elida to see if she has some interest. So with that, any more feedback on new council members?
Do we have any suggestions from anybody, or?
Thank you. That's what I was going to ask. If you don't feel comfortable, kind of throwing out some possible names, what I would really appreciate is if you could email me some people that you think might be good members to consider to reach out to. So you can also do that. Email me and we will follow up with folks. All right. All right, with that, any other comments by council members? And Tim, I want to really thank you. I think you and Bob have been extraordinary members, and I have always appreciated Bob's thorough consideration of our topics. Your comments have always been reflective, and I feel like made us think about what is our mission and staying with that. And Tim, I have always felt like your feedback about, especially the question, okay, what is it that the Bitterroot College has to sell? What is our priority? That has always, again, refocused us to what are we doing? Why are we here? What is important? So thank you both very, very much for your contributions. And Sue.
Yes, thank you guys. Did anybody attend the Hamilton High School board meeting last night? Bitterroot College was on the agenda. So I was at another meeting, but I talked to Steve, who sat in on it, and he said they were talking about our campus. They're going to form a committee to discuss the continuing of it being Bitterroot College. But they said the main consideration that they had was that they're really going to miss the money from the Head Start that was on campus here, or on campus at Bitterroot College.
Oh, in the form of rent?
Yes.
Oh.
That they have suffered a substantial loss of income.
Okay. You know what I will do? I will follow up with Tom Korst and get a feel for what some thoughts might be.
Yeah. And does Bitterroot College have access to those 2 rooms now?
Tori can give us some feedback.
Yeah, actually, I have been talking to Tom, and so the situation is that Head Start is vacating their 2 classrooms and the modular sometime over the summer, and our lease is actually up in 4 days, and we've been trying to get the school district to we've been on this since I don't know, February, but we finally got direction from the school district last week, and we can they will give us access to those rooms, but they are wanting us to pick up the utilities bill. And so I was actually getting in the process today, this afternoon. I was going to send a note to the provost, and actually was going to include Nathan and Hillary, who's the provost budget officer, and say that yeah, the utilities are $30,000 a year. So,
Additionally?
Additionally. We just need to have a conversation with the UM about if that money can be found. But negotiations are open. I feel confident the school district will work with us, knowing that we're in a budget situation. So I'm not concerned that we're going to not be able to stay here, and we just need to figure out a path forward. But I feel like Tom understands and can speak with his board depending on how the conversations go with the UM. Yeah, it's a situation, but it is developing, and all's well that will end well, and it will end well, but there's discussions.
Okay.
And I didn't bring that up in our situation because it's so fresh, and it's in the thick of it. But we will get the additional space, and then we just have to figure out how we're gonna to assist with utilities.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing that up, Sue. Okay, any other public comment on the building conversation? And again, Tim and Nathan, you will be missed. All right. Moving on to area 6 of our agenda. Any separate council member updates? Hearing none. Nathan, any other updates from the university that don't have to do with closures and budgets, just fun stuff, okay?
Just want to make sure that people are aware of the great resources available for Bitterroot employees, the LinkedIn Learning, which is about 15,000 courses of topics ranging from everything. I mean, learning about Excel to how to facilitate Zoom meetings to about every other professional development. They're short videos or short kind of modules that are very useful that Jasmine and Amy in the Office of Organizational Learning and Development were great in procuring for us. They're also the really good websites for Keep on Teaching, Keep on Learning, and Keep on Working. Those continue to be updated and have great guidance for students, for faculty, and for staff. I guess they're just
Are they related? Are they related with the LinkedIn, or is that a separate?
Separate. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then obviously the big news is that the provost is leaving. We're really sad about that. John's been a terrific partner and a terrific asset to UM, and personally and professionally, I think it's a huge loss. And we're happy that he can be with his family in Indiana, which I think is a good thing. But we'll miss him a lot. And we're excited to work with Reed Humphrey, who's the Dean of the College of Health. Longtime citizen, and I think he'll do really well in this role.
Yeah, we were sad to hear about Provost Harvard leaving.
One constant is change, so we're nothing but resilient. Our middle name,
yes,
Grizzly Grit.
Tori, you had a comment. Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay, Nathan, anything more? All right. Thank you very much. All right. Kirk Lacey, I apologize. I have really not connected with him. I was going to call him personally, and I have not. So I will continue to try to see if he's interested in joining us, and get back to you. I'm really sorry. I apologize for not having done that. Is there any other piece to be added by any of our council members for the part 6 in our agenda? Hearing none, is there any public comment on this part of our agenda? No comment. All right. Part 7, announcements or any documents received? Nothing. Okay, none. Any new business? Any new motions? Anything new with folks? Hearing none. I do apologize. I feel like when we're in person, my personal flow is much better and much more inviting. So I'm working on my Zoom presence to be as inclusive and as inviting as possible, but it's still a challenge for me. So with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I will make that motion, but first, before I do we have any idea of when we'll be able to meet in person, maybe even if we distance?
Well, it appears that after June 1 in the state, that would be allowable. That's a great question, Sue. My preference is in person, with the caveat that what we've been doing for the new trustees-elect, that we meet in person with social distance. I would ask that we all wear masks, and that we also provide Zoom as an option, because if someone lives with someone who is at risk, we want that person's participation, but we don't want to put that family at risk. So I would say after June 1, yes, we can try to meet in person with those caveats. Other opinions and okay, all right, yeah. That's a great question. Thank you for asking. And with that, my question would be, this month's meeting was a little bit late because of the Regents meeting. So do we want to look at being back at the 17th, which would be the typical third Wednesday of the month? Do we want to get back on that schedule? Okay, so I will confirm that. I'll send a quick email, just a reminder to people that we're going to try for an in-person meeting on June 17th, and that we'll get back into our regular schedule. Okay, all right, thanks.
So, do you need the motion now?
Yes.
I make the motion that we adjourn this fabulous Zoom meeting until next time.
Second.
Terry seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same motion, same indicator. All right. Thank you. Motion carried. Feel free. Thanks, Matt, for joining us. Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Monique. Anyone that wants to hang around and chat some